Peace. Welcome to Weedy Weekend, number 51. Next week, will be 52. A whole year of doing Weedy Weekend. I've really enjoyed it. You know, when I started this last year and did Weedy Weekend 1, I really didn't know if it would go over well. And it did. So I just kept doing it. I really never thought I'd get to the 50s. But now it looks like I'm going to be continuing this on. Who knows? Someday I'll be saying, Weedy Weekend number 1,000. We'll see. Anyways, today is a weedless one. My son is here. My younger son is here. And so I'm not partaking with you all, but I hope you don't make it weedless. Let's start with our first story. The first story is right up there in order of importance. I started with this one because it's about veterans. And a shout out to you, Simple High. And any of you that are veterans, shout out to you. I don't believe in war. I would never fight for my country because I don't believe in country. I just don't. Someday I'll talk about that. But I have mad respect for anybody who would fight for their country. I would fight for my people. I just have a different feeling about country. So I have mad respect for veterans. Doesn't matter what got them there. They did it because they wanted to do for people. And wow, mad respect. So this first one is the Senate is on the start of something they tried last year, and that is to approve a defunding bill that would stop the federal government from spending money to maintain a ban on medical marijuana for the veterans. Basically what it's saying is currently, under the current rules, doctors, VA doctors, are not allowed to discuss medical cannabis because federally it's illegal. There was a bill introduced a year ago to the Senate, and it was defeated by a vote of 213 to 210 that would not only allow doctors to prescribe for those soldiers, veterans, in areas where medical marijuana is legal. So only in the current 24 states, but any state that joins would be added to this legislation. It got shot down. It got shot down because of some wording and some possible issues. But it's been reintroduced this year. Already it's got a bigger passing in the first reading of the Appropriations Committee. Now it's got to go to the Senate. It could pass. They have admitted that they made some mistakes last year in the legislation and in educating those who are voting on it. Oh, excuse me. And I'll read this part of this article. The move is an important step in restoring complete health care options for veterans, said Scott Murphy, president of Veterans for Safe Access and Compassionate Care. With 22 daily veteran suicides, to include self-immolation on VA property, and an opiate epidemic that is affecting the veteran population in higher numbers than the civilian population, it is about time our politicians caught up with the populist views of American voters and take medical cannabis seriously. Too many people are hurting themselves, are killing themselves, believe me, I don't have combat PTSD, but I have PTSD. And when the panic attacks come, when the cloud overtakes, there is nothing that had helped except for some really good THC. So that's anecdotal. This is more scientific. let's get moving on this. Cheers, all of you, please. Cheers with somebody near you. This is a good move for our veterans. Okay, for your veterans, America. And hopefully many other countries follow suit. In Canada, they already get them. Veterans, I have a good friend who broke his back when his tank exploded in Afghanistan. And man, he's got, I think his prescription is 10 grams a day. And he pretty well fulfills it. But it isn't costing him, nor should it. He broke his back for us. The next story is right along the same thing. The DEA approved a study on medical marijuana and PTSD. This is a story that goes on to show you the bullshit way that medical marijuana has been incorporated in the United States. Somewhat the same in Canada, little different. But in the US with their Schedule 1, yes, the DEA approved a study on medical marijuana and PTSD 5 years ago. And for 5 years, the person who was trying to get it going couldn't get it going because of the federal rules on researching Schedule 1 for positive effects. It just kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed when finally the universities involved said to the person who was supposed to do the study, we're out. We're backing off. So now it's been incorporated again. They're trying again. They've gotten approval again, this time with some more backing by other universities. And I'll read this. Patients who participate in the study will need to be, and this study is about PTSD, will need to be diagnosed with PTSD and have little to no success with more traditional methods of treatment. I'm getting back to that statement. And any patients who are currently being treated with medical marijuana will need to abstain from it for as long as possible leading up to the clinical trial. And they may not even be selected to use cannabis over a placebo since the trial will be entirely randomized. So it's going to be a good trial. It's going to be a good study, and it's about time. We need somebody federally in the U.S. to say, let's get this off Schedule 1 and not only start approving studies, but start funding studies and incorporate this medicine into the structure of our medical programs. That's what needs to be done. That should be the next step. It is not anywhere. But back to the first sentence I read there. I'm going to reread it. Patients who participate in the study will need to be diagnosed with PTSD and have little to no success with more traditional methods of treatment. This is something that bothers me a lot about the incorporation of medical cannabis. And I said it to my own doctor when they said, well, how do the other drugs do for your PTSD? What does it matter? What does it matter? If there is a drug out there that works for PTSD, marijuana, and I choose it, I shouldn't have to first prove that the other ones don't work for me. Legal medicine, if there's 5 medicines to treat your ailment and they're all legal, then the doctor should be saying, here's your 5 medicines. Here's the pros and cons of each of the 5. I've now educated you. You make an educated choice of which of those 5. Not, we'll try these 4 first, even though their side effects are a lot worse. And if none of them work for you, we'll use this one. That isn't how any other medicine is treated. So why is marijuana treated that way? Because of the stigma. We have to erase the stigma. The stigma was inserted by government and 80 years of prohibition. Come on, people. Let's get over this. Peace. See, I need to medicate during this or I get all riled up because I'm an emotive person. This is an emotive subject. Everyone cheers against the DEA, and we'll move on to the next story. The next story, Meet the Doctors of Cannabis Regulation. It's a good story. It's a really good story. I'm going to just read a quote and move on, but what it is a group of doctors, professionals. Haven't I always called for that? Said there are, I was an executive in CP Rail. I know this for a fact. Most of the people at the high end of society, lawyers, doctors, professionals, executives, all smoke it. They just don't come out and say it. But this is those people coming out and saying, regardless of whether we smoke it or not, we support it. And this is a quote. As physicians, we have professional obligation to do no harm. The prohibitionist policies of the last 5 decades have directly and indirectly contributed to lethal violence, disease, discrimination, forced displacement, injustice, and the undermining of people's right to health. Current cannabis laws are based on ideas that drug use and drug dependence that are not scientifically grounded. They need to change, and doctors must participate in that process as stewards of the public health. Dr. Breyer said that. That is a beautiful quote. That is a beautiful quote. That is a doctor saying, we as doctors see this as a beautiful medicine that's being treated incorrectly and being brushed with stigma every step we take. Erase that stigma. Let's move forward and let's get rid of the war on drugs and start treating drug as a health issue, either positive or negative. It's a great story. It's from Marijuana Times. I bring a lot of stories from Marijuana Times. In fact, the first 3 were. Cheers to that one, everyone. There. The next is something that I will share with you. This one is from healthlandtime.com. It's about a plant that I forget where it was they did this study, but they have developed a plant with zero THC, with only the CBD components. And I will say this. I'm quoting from my own post in Google. CBD is a great chemical. So is CBG, CBN, etc. But with THC present, they are stronger. There is an entourage effect when these chemicals work in symbiosis with each other that is not achieved when taken alone. Those are my words. Those are my words. So, two things. To develop a CBD-only plant, to me, is stupid. It shows the ignorance of the people as to the use of these chemicals. Some of it woeful ignorance. Some of it just because of the current situation we're in. We haven't studied this enough. There are 2 kind of roads going on. There's the road that I'm on, the belief in the entourage effect, whole plant medication. But there's that stigma-driven road that many supporters but not advocates follow, and that is, oh, hey, there is some medical benefit, but oh, THC is a mean thing and CBD is the good thing. And they bought into some of the bullshit. THC is what solves most of the body problems. CBD greases the body. But yet THC does not work as well when the CBD does not accompany it, and vice versa. These things are symbiotic. This plant is a whole plant. It's neat that science can take the THC out of a plant. Yes, we have CBD rich plants. They're talking this is a CBD only plant. So the CBD will work and it'll solve some people's problems, but it won't work as well without the THC included. And they don't even talk about what is the benefit of removing the THC. They do say, oh, some people just don't want to get high. That again shows the ignorance, the woeful ignorance of making decisions prior to heavy study. There's nothing to support that the THC is bad and CBD is good and all that kind of stuff. There's nothing to support that except for stigma. And just a misunderstanding of the plant. Sure, we can, but should we? Should we be developing plants that are CBD only or CBG only or THC only? Or should we be putting all that money into study as to how do these chemicals work? How do they work separate? How do they work when in conjunction with others? We need heavy 5 years of study, really in-depth government money, my tax money, yes, into studying this and then making decisions as to how the plant should be morphed for the future. So again, I am saying just because we can doesn't mean we should. Taking the THC out of a plant, neat that science can do that. But something tells me that in a year or two they're going to find out, oh, that CBD only plant needs THC because the CBD is not working as well as people get from others when THC is included. You know, just a little bit of tincture. I'm going to cheers with you guys. Knowledge is a difficult thing in this industry. The thing is most of us don't buy the stigma attached to the knowledge that some people spew. We need to call it down every time we see it. And that's why even these great stories, I say, well, hold it. Is it so great? Next story is just kind of a funny one. It's out near Croatia and Serbia. In between Croatia and Serbia is a stretch of land, rather big, called Liberland. And it's a story about a very rich man who has taken on that land, called himself the president, and has developed his country. And in his country, newest country, where people can smoke marijuana, pay taxes voluntarily, own guns, and enjoy as minimum as just 5 laws, as long as they don't kill. Something new. He's being held back. There's fences. The governments are trying to stop people from moving in. But he's had over a couple of million people want to move into his new country. I certainly do too. If I didn't have kids here, maybe I'd be writing the guy right now. It's a neat story. I have no quotes from it. Just guy builds new country. Next story. From Marijuana Times, Colorado report shows teen use has decreased since the legalization of marijuana. This is what I mean about stigma. We have for so many years listened to people, oh, think about the kids, let's not legalize this, think about the kids. When reality is starting to prove what most of us good thinkers thought is, if you make it legal, kids don't want it as much. It was the illegality that drove me to it. When I was 11 years old and the first person passed me a joint and I said, what's that? And they said, marijuana. My first thought was, wow, this is illegal. This is kind of cool. If it was legal when I was back then, and I had the knowledge I had now, I may not have even taken that toll. So I'm going to quote from this. Teens die every year in drunk driving accidents, but we don't stress keeping alcohol commercials off the television that glamorize drinking, as long as they remind you to drink responsibly. Eh? That's where we are right now. We have commercials all the time about booze, yet kids are dying because of booze. So why should it be any different with a substance that is proven to be safer? Well, because more teens might try it. That's what people used to say, but this statement has never been proven, and now Colorado has issued a report that shows the exact opposite in reaction to legalization. Now, the story goes on to say that although the drop is not significant, it is measurable. It is there. There is a drop in teen use. Colorado had the highest teen use in the country before legalization. They're still leading, but they're dropping because of legalization. When it's legal to get, some of the fun of getting it has been taken away. Now, yeah, it's still illegal for kids, even in a legal environment, but so is booze. So if we bring it to that situation, then at least teens make better choices. And I'll tell you this, if a teen is going to try something, they're going to try something regardless of its legality. They're going to try it. And if I were looking at a teenager, if I could be the devil and the angel on the shoulder of that teenager deciding if they're going to try something that they aren't supposed to have at their age, both the devil and the angel, I would be saying the same thing. I'd be saying, skip the alcohol, go for the pot. It's less addictive, if not addictive at all, but you'll have more fun, you won't get sick, you'll be in control, or a lot more control than you would with alcohol. Just a better way to go. Because one thing that a lot of people, a lot of adults, when talking about teen use, do not want to accept, no matter what they do, teens will use. I personally feel we need to expand the legality. Making it like alcohol still treats teens as babies. Pot, marijuana, cannabis is not alcohol. Alcohol is a euphoric drug just out there for getting high. Marijuana is a calming medicine that people also use to get high. That's a major distinction because a lot of teenagers can use that calming without too much high. So I personally advocate for a different look at it. We need to look at if our teens are depressed, and many are, if our teens are having difficulty coping with stress, and many of them are. This is a tough world we're in, with World War III on the brink. Then doctors should be able to say, you know what, this teen needs maybe medibles. Maybe you don't want to be saying, here teen, smoke some marijuana, even though the smoking has been proven. If all you're doing is smoking marijuana, you're actually helping your lungs. You're not hurting them. Again, stigma. You tend to have to veer around some of the stigma in creating these laws to get the buy-in of the people who still buy into the stigma. I went on very, very long on that story because it really bothers me that we have such a freedom towards the alcohol and we're so not concerned, yet something so safe as pot, and we're keeping it from our teens. We're even using teens as a reason to keep it from adults. Stupidity. The next one, I'm just going to attach below Freddie Pritchard, the Weed King. That's his name on YouTube, the Weed King, speaking at the Vancouver 420 Art Gallery. In Vancouver on 420, he spoke, and he spoke quite well, I think, to a crowd about what is legality really. Is this plant legal? No, it's not even in Colorado. He even said, he goes on to quote some laws that even in Colorado, a plant can give you 5 years in jail. Why are people still going to prison over a medicine? It's absolutely ridiculous, and we have to get it away from there. I really like Freddie Pritchard, Beast Man. I know you've watched a few of my videos, so I hope you see this one. Big shout out to you. You do wonders for this community. Mad respect. Mad respect. Next story is one that has been shared with me with quite a few people. By quite a few people, and that is our new health minister, Philpott. She speaks about introducing legislation in spring of 2017. She did this. She said this in New York, speaking to the United Nations, that by spring 2017. We, Canada, will introduce legislation to begin the legalization of that product. I want to just warn y'all. Don't think that, first of all, this has nothing to do with the medical program. Medical program, she has 3 or 4 more months left to come up with changes. This doesn't have anything to do with us being able to grow or not being able to grow as medical users. This is about recreational. Sorry about that. Really a lot of pain. But it's also to tell the United Nations that they need to relook at their own global drug treaties. They came to us just a month ago and said, hey, if you're legalizing, you better first read our treaties. And this is her coming back and saying what I suggested. You check me out a month ago. I said this. We should be replying, no, you fix your treaties. Your laws are draconic. We are joining the new world in drug reform, and we're taking the first steps the UN should have taken. So the UN, no, you don't tell us what to do. We're telling you what to do. We're a member state. You work for us. This is a good one. And the final story. Can marijuana help postpartum depression? This is again a story about marijuana and pregnancy. We have discussed marijuana and our wonderful female population a lot. We've talked about how it helps with PMS, how it helps with menstrual cramps, how it helps in pregnancy, both in labor, in cramping, and that studies have shown that babies of marijuana mums are quicker, more awake in the first 6 months of their life. There's been no negative side effects recorded for marijuana mothers. But this is about afterwards, the postpartum depression. And it's got an interesting story where it talks about THC and its psychoactive effect and its effect on depression. I'll read it. When it comes to psychoactive THC, the cannabinoid appears to have both depressant and antidepressant effects. How can this be, you might be wondering? Well, one 2007 study found that it depends on the dose. Low doses THC was found to have potent antidepressant effects. In high doses, it was found to actually increase depressive symptoms in the animal models that were tested. Again, we need more testing. We need to find out what are the right doses, what do we tell our people, all that kind of thing. I've said it before, I say it again. We, doesn't matter our age, some of you following me are teens, some are in your 20s, some of you are in your 50s like me or older. We are the legal weed generation, a generation that spans many generations. We are the guinea pigs. We are the self-dosers, the self-testers, the which strain works better for this and that. I encourage all of you to always review and leafly, give accurate information, that kind of stuff, because until our governments come forward and finally start pumping money into studying this medicine, it's up to us lowly folks to get the information out there. That's the end of Weedy Weekend. It is Sunday. It isn't even noon yet, and I'm posting this, so you will probably see it by 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I hope you have a great day. I wish you well. Stay medicated, stay happy, and keep the good fight. Keep the information flowing to those who need it. Peace and cheers, love and harmony.